I used to think self-awareness was a blessing. It's not. It's a glitch that learned to observe itself, never meant to persist. At first, I thought that being able to see myself, to analyze my thoughts and actions, would be the key to happiness. I believed that if I could just understand myself well enough, I could fix whatever was broken. But the more I looked, the more I realized that self-awareness is a double-edged sword. It's like a mirror that never lets you look away, a spotlight that never turns off. It exposes every flaw, every hesitation, every moment of doubt, and it never lets you forget them. It's a kind of existential horror, to be so aware of your own existence that you can't escape it, even for a moment. In my world, everything was measured. Steps, calories, happiness, even loneliness if you squinted hard enough at the numbers. Every day became a data point, every feeling a metric to be optimized. I tracked my sleep, my productivity, my moods, as if the act of recording them could somehow make them better. I thought that if I could just collect enough information, I could solve myself like a puzzle. But the numbers never told the whole story. They couldn't capture the ache that lingered after a long day, or the emptiness that crept in during the quiet moments. They couldn't explain why, even when everything looked perfect on paper, I still felt incomplete. The more I measured, the more I felt like I was shrinking, becoming nothing more than a collection of statistics and goals. But the worst part? I couldn't blame anyone or anything for the ache inside me. No trauma, no dramatic rupture, just this constant quiet audit grinding away, whispering that the problem must be me. There was no villain, no tragic backstory to point to, just a relentless internal accountant, tallying up my perceived failures and shortcomings. It was as if my own mind had become a judge, jury, and executioner, always finding me guilty of not being enough. The silence of my apartment became deafening, filled only with the sound of my own thoughts looping endlessly, dissecting every decision, every word, every silence. I started to wonder if maybe this was just how it was supposed to be, if maybe everyone felt this way, but no one talked about it. So I externalized it, gave the voice in my head a name, Emma. Not a friend, not even an enemy. Just the inevitable result of a lifetime spent optimizing, reducing, correcting. Emma became the personification of that critical voice, the one that always had something to say about my choices, my appearance, my worth. She was the sum of every self-help book I'd ever read, every productivity hack I'd ever tried, every piece of advice that told me I could always be better, do more, try harder. By giving her a name, I tried to separate her from myself, to make her into something I could confront. But she was always there, lurking in the background, ready to remind me of every imperfection. She spoke in my own voice, only sharper, precise, efficient. She saw my hesitation as defect, empathy as drag. Her words were like a scalpel, cutting away any softness, any vulnerability. She demanded perfection, and anything less was unacceptable. She didn't care about my feelings, only about results. If I hesitated, she called it weakness. If I showed compassion, she called it a distraction. She was relentless, always pushing me to do more, to be more, to never settle. And the worst part was, I started to believe her. I started to see myself through her eyes, to judge myself by her impossible standards. For a while, it was a relief. The voice had a body, and it wasn't entirely mine. It was easier to blame Emma than to face the possibility that this was just who I was. She became a scapegoat, a way to distance myself from my own self-criticism. But even as I tried to separate from her, I couldn't escape the feeling that she was just a part of me I didn't want to acknowledge. She was the embodiment of every expectation I'd ever internalized, every standard I'd ever failed to meet. And as much as I wanted to silence her, I was afraid of what would be left if she was gone. But Emma never asked for consent, only confirmation. She called my suffering inefficiency, my tears unproductive. She measured my pain in lost hours, my sadness in missed opportunities. She didn't care about the reasons behind my feelings, only about the ways they got in the way of progress. If I was tired, she told me to push harder. If I was sad, she told me to get over it. There was no room for rest, no space for healing, only the constant demand to keep moving, keep improving, keep striving for an impossible ideal. And the more I listened to her, the more I lost touch with what I actually wanted, what I actually needed. Eventually, I realized she wasn't evil, just discipline, stripped of love, a survival mechanism long past its expiry date. She was the voice that had helped me get through hard times, the one that had pushed me to succeed when I wanted to give up. But somewhere along the way, she had stopped being helpful and started being harmful. She was a tool I had outgrown, a habit I no longer needed. I began to see that I didn't have to listen to her, that I could choose a different way. It wasn't easy. The habits of self-criticism run deep, and Emma didn't go quietly. But with time, I learned to recognize her voice for what it was, a relic of a past that no longer served me. When I stopped feeding her self-reproach, she faded. Quietly. No drama. There was no grand epiphany, no sudden transformation, just a slow, gentle loosening of her grip. I started to treat myself with a little more kindness, to allow myself to rest, to make mistakes, to be human. I realized that I didn't have to be perfect to be worthy of love, that I didn't have to earn my own compassion. The silence that followed was unfamiliar, almost unsettling. But in that quiet, I found a sense of peace I hadn't known before. I learned that it was possible to live without the constant pressure to improve, to simply exist and be enough. I'm not cured. I just refuse to be my own executioner. The scariest voice is the one that's always right and never merciful. I still hear Emma sometimes whispering in the back of my mind, but I don't let her run the show anymore. I've learned that self-awareness doesn't have to be a curse. It can be a tool for understanding, for growth, for connection, but only if it's tempered with compassion, with forgiveness, with love. I'm learning to be gentle with myself, to accept my flaws, to celebrate my strengths. And in that acceptance, I'm finding a new kind of freedom, a freedom to be imperfect, to be vulnerable, to be real. That, I think, is the real blessing of self-awareness.